Good morning. I'm trying to. Ugh. Oh, I'm not home, so I don't know how this works. Oh, it's a lot happening. All right, we're here though. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of See You in the Morning. I am, of course, your host, Cletus Cassidy. Welcome. I'm in North Carolina, UNC Greensboro. Yesterday, of course, dropped my daughter off for college. We'll talk about that experience a little bit later, man. That's a little something different. You know, when you finally get rid of your kids, um, it's a joyous occasion. I know there's a lot of parents out there that have celebrated with me through my journey of unleashing her into the world. So we're gonna talk about that as well. I'm in a new experience for myself. I did an Airbnb. It's my first time ever doing one. The neighborhood seems good. My vehicle's still out front. Nobody broke in overnight. I haven't been sex trafficked. I'm pretty sure if I was, I would get returned anyway. I am well past sex trafficking prime. You live long enough, you don't have to worry about that anymore. But that's a whole different story as well. Today, of course, is See You in the Morning. What this is my horrible idea to get up in the morning and talk about things that are on my mind. If this is your first time hearing this, you are about to experience something so cold. If you've watched it before and you decided to return, I thank you so much for doing so. I really do. Now, this show, of course, is sponsored by the Michael Jerome Massey PC. If you ever find yourself in some legal trouble, you're on your way. You've been swinging chairs at people, and now they want to bring you in for questioning. Michael Jerome Massey is the guy that you call 757-397-0003. If you went folding chair upside the head, you got to do it. There's a refrigerator behind me. It's not mine, but it's nice. I don't know how they do security deposits for these Airbnbs, but a lot of the stuff in here I kind of want to keep for my own. I don't know if that's stealing or not, but it may be unauthorized borrowing, so I'm not going to do it. First thing I do on the show today is I speak, and the first three people that I speak to, of course, get medals. So let me do that. Bronze medal today, Kim Cat Thomas Jones coming in with the silver. Franita. It's Spanish for Frank and Nita. And winning the gold medal, of course, on the day that we talking about hunching is gonna be trouble. She don't come in early any other time, but here we go on sex day. She been waiting for this since yesterday, so fantastic. Crystal Sex Appeal in the building. Michelle McKinney. Wilberta, the sheriff, is in the building. Katrina, thank you. Rochelle, the pride of North Carolina. Courtney Weston Murphy. My little cuz Timothy is in the building. Crystal Pennell, La Barbara is in the building. Tony Fogle, Joyce Brown, Shannon. Ebony says it's definitely stealing. I don't know if it's stealing or not. Whatever. Delisa. I have a date with Delisa. Sonia's in the building. T. Mitchell. Everybody's in the building. Remember, y'all go ahead and share this post. Now, if you didn't watch the show yesterday, we talked about fetishes. If you're a little kinky, good morning, Kitty. If you're a little bit kinky, if you got a little bit of a issue, we went on Google. I think I Googled a flogger yesterday. And man, when I found out what one of those was, I was like, my life has changed. I didn't even know. I felt like Genuine. My whole life had changed since floggers came in. So we started talking about how that affects relationships, how people have certain kinks. We even talked about why they don't talk kinky in church. Some of y'all was like, oh my gosh, not my church, but maybe your church needs to get a little nasty. Maybe y'all need to have a grown folks Sunday. And so I realized that I'm not the smartest cookie in the jar. So I've actually brought guests today. I've got guests, so y'all got to be on your best behavior when we talk about this stuff, or just be yourselves. I brought somebody in who's a learned doctor. She's learned so much about so many things, man, from trauma counseling to relationships. She'll tell you all about those. And I also brought in a pastor. Now, I'm not 100% sure who ordained him, but I know he's actually preached. I've been in his church before, and he actually knows Jesus, like he calls him. So I brought him in. So, ladies and gentlemen, I got two guests today. I want y'all to be polite to them as I bring them forth. First of all, ladies first, please put your hands together for Miss Malira Green. Good morning, Malira.
Good morning.
Edge up on Crisp.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
You didn't have to do that just for the show. I love the earrings. What that is It brings attention to the ears.
Thank you.
It definitely does, man. That's dope. Like that's a new thing now though. Like with the I seen a lot of the ladies wearing those kind of earrings and the ones with like the tassels on them, like the
Mhm.
ear tassels. Those are nice, man. Appreciate it. Let people know real quick because this is about 1, 4, 8, 10, 14. There's 19 letters after your name. 19 letters after your name. Let people know what all that stuff means.
So I am Malara Green, and I function as a licensed clinical social worker who is a certified complex trauma professional, the advanced level of that. I am a certified anxiety informed professional, and then I'm a certified sex treatment informed professional.
Good, good. So here's my question, because you got a whole husband and kids. Like, when did you get to see them? Because it seems like all you've been doing is out there getting certificates and learning. Like, you ain't had no time for nobody. I ain't never seen nobody with that many letters after their name. Never. Never. But you're one of my favorite people, man. Always been able to talk to you. You always give me good advice. You're probably the most encouraging person I've ever met in my life. So that jank is crazy. So I appreciate it. Every time you hit me up, you be like, "Good morning, King. Good afternoon, King." And I be like, "Man, I ain't a king of nothing but burgers." And you be like, "Hey, at least you got a kingdom. At least you got a kingdom." Speaking of kingdom, man, here's a kingdom-minded brother, man. This dude, really good friend of mine. Now, as far as comedians, I'm his second closest comedian friend. He's way closer to comedian Griff. Even went all the way down to Atlanta to see Griff. Never came to Virginia to see me. But that's just, we're not gonna argue about that. Y'all please show your love all the way from New Jersey for my man Pastor Shy. No letters after his name.
What's up, fam? What's up, fam? When you open you a comedy club, I promise you I'm gonna be in Virginia. How about that?
I got you, and I'm gonna do that. Both. I'm gonna open the club just to make you come down.
There you go. There you go. But
That's the kind of ignorant that I am. I'm gonna open a club just so you have to come down here, man. Just real quick, let people know who you are.
well, God bless you guys. Listen, Pastor Shy, officially Pastor Sharon Richardson. Been in ministry now for almost 30 years. Been married for 30 years. Wife and I actually have a marriage ministry that we've been doing for about 25 years. So we've been counseling couples all that time. We had a radio show, actually getting ready to relaunch our radio television show. So we just love, first of all, I love God, I love people, and I definitely love marriage. And so this is a topic that I'm excited to talk about. Good to see the doctor with the fly, our queen with the fly green earrings on. I left my earrings at the house, so I'll have them next time. How about that?
Hopefully you don't have those though. Hopefully you
Yeah,
don't have. I mean, no judgment zone, but I'm asking, don't wear those. That's just me.
I
If you
got
don't wear those, we gonna have to keep our friendship real long distance. Like you stay back there. So here's the first thing we talked about yesterday. We got into it. Our Wednesdays are always hunch days. We talk about sex on Wednesdays. And we try to approach it from like just a grown folk perspective. And I realized, man, that sex for everybody. And like me, I'm a virgin, so I learn a lot when we had these conversations. So talking to y'all is gonna be different. Let me ask you both, and you can come from a spiritual perspective or even just the doctoral perspective. How important is sex in relationships, Malira?
It is very important. So, Dr. Tammy Nelson, she says there's two different sides of relationship. You have the companion side, and then you have the erotic side. We do a great job on the companion side. That is who pays the bills, who walks the dogs, who take care of the kids primarily, having that friendship, being able to laugh, that regular everyday routine that you create in a relationship. We focus a lot on that. But then there's the erotic side. And the way that she looks at it is if you are alive, the only thing on the other side of death is eroticism. But we don't talk about it. That's the piece that I'm in love. That's the piece that I am passionate. That's the piece that I'm excited to be around you. Is that piece that we all have. And innately, all of us have our own levels of how to fulfill that, but we don't really talk about those things. So in her mind, she says sometimes it's not fixing the relationship to fix the sex life. It's sometimes fixing the sex life to really connect, reconnect. And then that sometimes fixes the relationship depending on if you're having that open level of communication. So both sides has to be present for the relationship to be successful, because if not, Nobody commits adultery because they wash their laundry better. They commit adultery because they're feeling this thing that is naturally there, that is easy for you to get in that moment, even if it's temporary. So it's extremely important.
So, Pastor Shy, biblically, you a whole pastor out here in these
Yeah.
streets. I ain't found the verse that the 10 Commandments didn't have "Thou shalt not get it in." So even biblically, how important is sex? Because if we look in the Bible, man, it's sex all over the Bible. So how important is sex biblically, even?
So, interestingly enough, I actually witnessed and led a brother to the Lord concerning this very same topic. He was married, and he was having a horrible sex life, and he was made to believe that sex wasn't that important to a Christian marriage. I took him to the Bible, where it talked about when it comes to husband and wives. The Bible talks about we need to be consistent in our sexual encounters, to the point where it says, even if a husband or a wife decides, I'm going to take some time to fast and pray and seek the Lord, you cannot do that without your spouse's permission, because often that time of fasting and praying includes abstaining from sex. And then the Bible says, if your husband gives you permission, your wife gives you permission. So my wife can say, listen, I'm going on a fast. I'm gonna say, you ain't talking to me about it, because you may be hungry, but I'm not going to be hungry. How about that? But then it says that when that time of fasting and praying is over, come together quickly so that you don't open up a door for temptation. And so sex, and especially sex in marriage, is vitally important to the health of the relationship.
Man, that dude said come together quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to come together is probably, I think, the part a lot of people have trouble with, man. They don't always come together. It's usually one person comes first and then the other. So, biblically speaking, we should both stop at the same time. Now, here's what I'm asking you, Pastor Shah, because this is crazy. So even when we start, and I see your question, Angelina, we're gonna talk about that. Y'all remind me, she wants to talk about post-menopause as well. So we're gonna make sure we talk about that. I don't even know if they talk about menopause in the Bible. They put your men on pause. But Pastor Shah, let me ask you this. So they say it's okay that the Bible wants you out there sexing it up.
Well,
But as married, they want you.
Gotcha.
The Bible says married
Yeah,
sexing
we're
it
talking
up.
about the Bible,
And
absolutely.
Lyra, I'll let you talk about just regular people sexing it
Yeah.
up, because we ain't
I
gonna
got the
stain.
Bible part too.
Yeah, I know you do, but I need somebody to be a sinner other than me. So, Pastor Shy, I'm looking though. I've looked through the Bible. The Bible don't say nothing about whips and chains, BDSM. Every time I close my eyes, I think about freaking you. I think the Bible says. So, what is the level of nasty that you say as a pastor you can get to?
So I think that one of the things we have to look at, a few things, but one of the things we have to look at is how comfortable is your spouse, right? Because you can't force your spouse to do something that they're not comfortable doing. I don't think that's love at all. But I also think you need to have the conversation I said yesterday about what you expect sexually before you get married, right? You said something yesterday that was interesting, but I think if I was in a marriage counseling session, I want to know if my spouse want to piss on me. I just want to know. I just want to know if that's part of your requirements, because ultimately we'll frustrate each other trying to make somebody else do something that, number one, they're uncomfortable with. But at the same time, too, one of the things I love about the Bible is that when I look at the first husband and wife, God created Adam and Eve, and he gave them no instructions, right? He gave them no instructions because he knew you're going to figure this out. The reason I love that is I think one of the issues that the church has done is gotten too involved in people's bedrooms. And I think we put restrictions on people that God never put on them. How about that?
Yeah, God ain't say don't pee. Hey, y'all figure out whether y'all enjoy it or not. Just stay off. I didn't say you can pee, just don't eat of that tree. Okay, I got you. So Lyra, let me ask you this: what happens? And you're clinically into this thing. What happens when you're nastier than the person that you're with? How do you level that off? You meet somebody and you're married or in a relationship, one of the two, and you realize you full R. Kelly, but she is Shirley Caesar. What happens when R. Kelly meets Shirley Caesar and she don't want to hold his mule?
So it goes back to that communication. Like, you have to have those unexpressed expectations talked about. So, for example, for me, naturally, I am more on I'm not gonna say R. Kelly because I ain't peeing on nobody, but I am more on the more appetite side. I have a really big appetite. My husband, on the other hand, is not. And at first it was a conflict because it's like, I was like, why am I this way, but you're not this way? You're the male. It's this things that people tell us in the world, like men are supposed to automatically have this level of drive. It was the opposite. It still is the opposite. But something that has helped us a lot is that communication, and we meet each other halfway. So a rule that I like to tell my clients is, if there's one that has a higher drive than the other, there's this thing that's called sex dates. I'm going to create a sex date with me, no matter what is going on in this day and this week. We're going to do it on this day at this time, and we're going to make it happen. No, nothing else. Because what happens is we rely a lot on spontaneity in our sex lives, because it's something that nobody wants to talk about. It's something that nobody wants to discuss. So we're just out here just trying to figure it out. But it's really important for us to actually take a step back and have a conversation about, this is what I need. So a lot of my couples, I'll say, hey, at least twice a week, one before Wednesday, one before Sunday. So then that is something where we all can actually get our needs filled. So now I don't have to go out and find any energy anywhere else, because we've had that conversation. You know what I need and things like that. But it is okay to say, hey, do you want to have kinky sex? Do you want to have regular sex where it's just missionary all the time? You know, like, you have to have those levels of conversation, because just like Pastor Shah said, if someone is uncomfortable, now I'm not able to connect with you. Sex is like plugging a actual cord into an outlet. That is the only way energetically we're going to be able to connect on a soul level, which is how God intended marriage to be in the first place. So if I'm supposed to connect with your soul, and your soul is in turmoil because I'm doing something that you don't want to actually engage in, then now we're going to create a whole nother level of an issue. So it starts with communication, because each person's sex desires, sex fantasies, all of that is going to be different. And if we wait until we get married to talk about that, then that's why people go outside the marriage, because it's like, well, if I can't get it here, I'm going to go and get it somewhere else. So that communication is what's going to help the Shirley Caesar meet R. Kelly, and they can end up having maybe a Chris Brown or something like that.
Not Christopher, because then somebody gonna end up getting slapped. So let me ask you this, man. I'm trying. That's a whole word right there. I'm trying to tell a woman, I want to get so deep into you that I touch your soul. That's how I want to come after when I finally go ahead and break down and have a little bit of sex. So let me ask you this, and I ask both of you this. You're married, past all of this. When you start saying we're gonna schedule sex, there's a physical side to sex. Like, that's a whole need. You need it. Like, that's a part of your body. Like, men are wired. Like, men don't believe it. People don't believe it. But nocturnal emissions are almost like a man period. You got that old sperm in there that's got to go. It's got to go somewhere. So you'll go to sleep. You have that wet dream because it's got to come out of there. That's a whole physical response. So you have a physical need for it, but there's also an emotional and a spiritual need. How do you prevent? So like you said, we need to schedule a sex date. Does that take away from the love of sex? Does that now become a chore? Like, when you look at the calendar, you be like, okay, Wednesday we got to take the kids to practice. We got to get groceries. Oh yeah, I need your feet on the ceiling. Like, does that take away from it, or do you have to just constantly reinvent it? That's a question for both of y'all. Pastor, I'll let you take the lead on it.
So here's the thing: we plan creeps, right? When you creep and you plan that I'm going to meet you Friday and we're going to hook up, you plan that we're going to meet here and meet there. So I don't see any difference in it, because one of the things that I often say is that my wife is not just my wife; she's also my midnight creep. I think what messes it up is when you have it planned to have the act, but you don't plan to create an atmosphere for the act, right? So it's one thing. I'm gonna stop right there. Go ahead, Doctor. I want to hear from the doctor.
No, both. I like both of them, man. We'll come back to it. Go ahead, Doc.
I was gonna say I definitely love that mindset. It's the fact that when I in a marriage make it fun. The scheduling part is only for the beginning. Eventually, it's not going to feel like it's scheduled. This is more for those individuals that, again, have a mismatch. If one person wants it and the other person doesn't, then now there's nothing happening, which ends up messing it up. So it's not necessarily never having a spontaneity. It's I am trying to get to a piece where we're just connecting. And I think that's the piece. Like, we are intentional about every other part of our lives besides intimacy. I'm not telling people that you can't be spontaneous, and I'm not telling people that you can't just have sex whenever you want to. But what I'm saying is, in order to really come together to make a marriage work, a lot of marriages aren't working. So if it's not working and with spontaneity and we just want to do whatever, it's not working. So when I have a schedule, I get to look forward, especially if life is something that keep happening. So as a space of shifting the mindset of why is sex the only thing we can't be intentional about?
Right.
You know, like, so it's shifting the mindset.
Absolutely.
This is something that's supposed to be special. This is something I want to create. And then when you put kids in the mix, I have 2 young kids. So sometimes it's borrowed time. So yeah, we want to do spontaneity, but I may need to look in the future to say, hey, this is a really busy week, but on Wednesday, we ain't got nothing to do. On this day, we ain't got nothing to do. So it's not necessarily scheduling because I want to take away the burning desire. People need to understand sex is deeper than what porn shows us. It's not to let me slap you in the butt, do these things. So we have this mindset that sex is just this random thing, an act that we just do. No, it is a spiritual act that connects 2 souls. So I need to be as intentional as I can. And even if it just happens, it's going to be even greater when it happens, because when I'm intentional about it, I'm now setting the atmosphere. So when spontaneity happens, I can really connect in a way that now I'm recharged for the rest of my day. I'm recharged to be a mom. I'm recharged to be a worker. It's a charging port for you.
So I know we're all sexual or Teslas, and we need to be plugged in every now and again. But what happens? And then to use the Tesla as an example, what happens when you're on automatic? Like, I'm hearing everybody talk about it being a soul thing, right? And as a virgin, it's hard for me to know exactly what y'all are talking about. But can we be honest? Can we be honest? I got a pastor here. I know it's hard for pastors to be honest. But we got a pastor here. We it ain't always spiritual. Mm-mm. It ain't always spiritual. I know. I know a lot of people have gone to the club, and you are not going to the club to find yourself a spiritual connection. You know what I'm saying? You ain't in the gym like, who can I lock in with spiritually? Now I know the church come in and they be like, there's soul ties and things of that nature. But sometimes to not be crass, I need to get these rocks off. Mm-hmm. Right? What happens then? Because what happens when the man wants it, the woman doesn't? The woman is like, is there an obligation for the spouse or even girlfriend? I know you're not going to condone the girlfriend situation, Pastor, or your significant other. Is there a obligation for you to be like, I got to get this to him because he need it to keep him from going out? What happens in the middle for those people, man? What happens to those people who are like, I don't really feel like, because we talked about menopause. A lot of ladies at menopause, they're like, dog, I'm done with this. I'm putting a pause on men. So what happens if he's still revved up and your engine is dying? Either one of y'all can go first.
So, I'll jump in. So here's the thing. And one of the things that I say to married people is that selfish people need not apply. If you're looking to be married, selfishness is not going to work in marriage. Back to the scripture. There's another scripture that says that as a husband, my body doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my wife, right? And so a part of me being her husband is being willing to sacrifice what belongs to her now to fulfill her needs, right? Because I think one of the other issues is that so many people have a selfish look on sex in marriage. It's all about me getting mine off. But when you understand that I'm not just here to get mine off, I'm here to make sure you get yours off. Then in those moments when, and I just, my wife, one of the rules that we laugh about and talk about it, My wife, she doesn't say I have a headache because I let her know I really don't need your head right now. Well, here's an aspirin you can take. We can just get past this. But as the doctor said, there are times, because life happens, and we're talking to grown people. Sometimes it's not that you don't want to have sex, but man, you're working, you're taking care of kids, you're doing this, that, and the third. And so there's times I come home, I work 2 jobs, right? I'm a pastor and I'm a director for the city that I live in. Well, sometimes I'm just tired, right? But my wife knows that no matter how tired I am, sometimes she'll come and want to, and there are times when I have to be honest and say, okay, hold on a second, sweetheart. Can you give me a second to reshift my mindset? Because I wasn't thinking about sex. I'm a little tired, but I love you enough that I'll get up, I'll drink some orange juice, I'll take a quick shower, because at the end of the day, I'm willing to give you what you need, even if it's not what I want.
I am willing to give you what you need, even if it's not what I want. Listen, first of all, my homeboy Pastor Shy is making it hard for Paul. I don't want to say making it hard for everybody, because this is the wrong show to say that on. But making it difficult out here for these brothers. If you ain't bringing it like Pastor Shy bring, you might want to rethink it. Malira, what you got?
So I know we talked a lot about the covenant of marriage, right? But everybody don't make it to that. Mm-hmm. So when people are out here and we want to say it's not spiritual, it is always spiritual. People have to understand, anytime you put a cord inside of that outlet, baby, you're going to pull out with that soul, and you're going to end up depositing your soul, whether it is a one-night stand or not. The issue that is really happening is we don't talk about the natural human development of the body. Think about babies. When you change a baby's diaper, where does their hand go as soon as that air hit? Their private part, because they feel the pleasure already before they even know what pleasure is. And when we want to go to biblical times, which I always tell people as well, we were not waiting until after we went to college. We were not waiting until all of our debt was paid. They were getting married at 13 and 14 years old because they knew once this cycle come, once this wet dream happened, you gonna want it, get married. They organized the marriage, and that's what it was. So now we're counteracting our natural makeup, our natural bodies, and what we want. But because we don't talk about sex and people don't understand what it really is, we are opening up things that we're not ready for. So, for example, this topic for me is very important because sex was introduced to me when I was 3. I didn't know what the ham sandwich it was.
Wow.
So from 3 to 13, I'm struggling with this sex thing because nobody's talking about it. All we know, this is pleasurable, so we're going to keep doing it. So when I turned 13 is when I actually lost my virginity. That's the normal time that people used to get married. But because nobody had these conversations, now I'm exploring. Now I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Now I'm trying to figure out like what is going on with my body? Why do I like this? And then now I have my kids. When we talk about it's not a soul thing, I can tell you aspects of people I laid down with that's in my children because I connected with that soul when I was 13 years old. So when we're talking about this thing not being spiritual, and we're talking about this thing as just being nasty, and all of that is a part of it. But we also have to understand why the covenant of marriage was created in the first place, was to be fruitful and multiply.
Come on here.
So when we're doing fruitful and multiply, it's not just multiply the fruits of my loin and I have children. No, it's multiplying spirits. It's multiplying characteristics. It is multiplying values and things like that. So when we're understanding that sex is bigger than just this moment of I just want to release, it is so much deeper than that. So every time you are releasing a part of your spirit, a part of your soul. So when we are going out here, one night stands is cool. I've had one. Okay. I'm not judging nobody. And even with the conversation that you said before the pastor was answering, you said, well, what happens when one spouse wants something, the other one doesn't? Do you have girlfriend, boyfriend, things like that? That is a new topic. It's called new monogamy. And I'm not even going to lie to you. When I was taking this training for this last credential behind my name, it opened Pandora's box. And it was at a point where I was sitting here talking to my husband, and I'm not even going to lie to you, we entertained it for 2 months. And then as we were entertaining this thing, I said, but how am I going to connect with my husband if I'm sitting here having conversations and entertaining any type of thoughts, feelings, or emotions with someone else? This is not what God really wants me to do, because I realize if I connect to that spirit in any way, I'm now going to mess up the fabric of which this marriage is. So we had to come together. Now it's just me and him. Listen, so don't nobody be like, you want a boyfriend? I don't. We went to a space where that was a topic of conversation, because again, my appetite is like buffet. His appetite is like, I can go to the dollar menu at McDonald's. Because of that, it's like, well, what do I do with this energy? And then that's when all those compromising and things happen, because I'm not trying to connect to nobody else's energy outside of the rib that I was created from. So we have to be very mindful of the mindset. It all starts with a mindset shift. Sex is not what we've made it to be. It really is not.
Ooh. So let me ask both of you guys really quick, because y'all both y'all are married, so y'all understand these things. And it's great for me to take all this in as a virgin and learn all this stuff. And when I finally go out and dig up in there. So here's the thing. We've been talking about kinks. The church never talks about kinks. I personally feel like growing up in the church, if there was a discussion about sex, the only discussions you had about sex in church, from my perspective, is don't do it unless you're married. Soul ties. Mm-hmm. So don't do it unless you're married. That's all we get. I've never really had anybody in church be like, bring a toy in. A rose is still a rose. It's all right to tie them up. Whips and chains. How do we broach those topics? So what if, especially for people who are together and you've been lamenting your sex life. Let's just say you with somebody and you've really been lamenting your sex life. There's really something that you've been wanting. How do you go to your spouse? How do we get rid of the stigma of going to your spouse and being like, hey girl, I really need you to handcuff me. Hey girl, I want to be spanked. Like, how do we get past, because we use the term nasty, and that already is a negative connotation. Right. Once you say something is nasty, it automatically has a negative connotation. How do we get to the point where we're open with, this is what I want? Even for like, I'll go all the way to the left. If you're a man and the man said, I want to be pegged. Like, how do you go? Like, that's got to bring you down a little bit. Like, babe, I need you. And if y'all don't know what pegging is, this ain't got nothing to do with Lego or that little thing that you play with in Cracker Barrel. So how do we get over going to our spouses or whoever about what we got going on? Either one of y'all.
So a couple of things that you say, right? One of the things that I want to bring up is just, it goes back to a level of conversation, because one of the things that I would want to ask is, where did you get these cravings from, right? Because a lot of times what we're trying to do is act out stuff we've seen or been exposed to, right? So like the doctor said, is that something you naturally want or something you watched in pornography, right? And I think that's where we get in trouble, because we have to ask, why do you want this? Number one. Number two, when you talked about in the bedroom, you know, I love what the Bible says. The Bible says that marriage is honorable in all things and the bed is undefiled, right? So basically what that's saying is that within the confines of the bedroom, it is okay to enjoy, watch this, and explore, right? Because if you look at it from the right perspective, it's an exploration. You're learning what turns your spouse on instead of assuming. And it's fun because when you get to the right destination, man, woohoo, right? But again, those are two things that I think should be asked, because why do you want what you want? And if you want what you want, am I willing to take this journey with you? I think when it comes to the church, is that, you know, there's some subjects, and the challenge of that is, again, when you talk about the church talking about sexual things, the line is when the church starts to put parameters based on a person's personal experience. Because
so usually the church takes on, what I've noticed about the church. I hate that. What I've noticed about the church is that the church takes on the personality of the pastor many times.
Absolutely.
What the pastor deems yay or nay, a lot of times is what the church ends up getting, because that's what he preaches. All right, go ahead.
And the other thing I would say on the positive side, because I think sometimes the church gives a bad rap. A lot of times what people in the church are doing, they're just trying to do all they can to make sure they're not walking that fence too far, right? And so some people they're not crass. They're just innocently saying, I'm not sure that this is something that I should be doing as a Christian. And I have no problem with that. I have no problem with somebody saying, this may be out of bounds for me. Again, as a pastor, what I try not to do is put my boundaries out that are not biblical on people. Now, if I got a scripture, we'll talk about it. But if it's just a personal preference, I'm not going to put my personal preference to put people in bondage. Because just like the doctor said, for me, some people might think, Pastor, you too wild. You need to get saved again, right? So I just think that, again, it goes back to spouses loving each other enough to have real conversations and being willing to do whatever they can within their comfort zone to make their spouse more comfortable.
Nice. What you got? What you got, Malira? Because you certified in this thing, and I've been sitting out, and a guy's been sitting at home, and he's really got this. He's really got this thing that he wants to do. And Pastor Sai, you might agree with me on this too. A lot of times, men don't want to project some of their quote unquote nasty stuff on their wives, right? Mm-hmm. You know, so it's some guys that feel like, and again, it's what you've been exposed to. So you've been exposed to your homeboys talking, hey man, you do it, leave it on her back, man. She ain't worth nothing. You know, you do this, you do that. Mm-hmm. And you be like, man, that might be cool. I can't do that to my wife. Right. I respect her. I love her, even though it's all natural stuff. So how do you broach those topics with your spouse?
Well, number one, we have to understand there is no such thing as normal sex.
Wait a minute.
Like that.
Say that one more time for the people in the back.
There is no such thing as normal sex. So like we demonize something as like Pastor Shah said, like you should be able to explore the bedroom when you're married. So if that means y'all have some things up in your ceiling and you hanging from it and you don't like, there is no such thing as something that is normal. So because of that, that's where the conversations and communication come in, because I do want to test the waters. I do want to see how far we can go. Listen, sex has nothing to do with safety, y'all. I really need y'all to understand. There's this thing called Maslow hierarchy of needs. And in our basic needs, it says food, water, sex. Food, water, sex. So there's this basic instinctively need that we have. And because of it, we all experience those feelings and desires in a different way. But just like Pastor Shah said, I need to know where they come from. I know for me, a lot of my stuff came from trauma. Like I said, I was exposed to sex at 3. So for me, sex to me equals love. I'm healing from that because I know that's not what it is. But I had to have a conversation with my husband. These are where my desires came from. This is what I want. This is what I need. This is what's happening. So then now we can create and explore together. When I say sex is not about keeping you safe, that's why people still go back and have sex with people who hit them and abuse them, because it's all about, in this moment, I get to test how far I get to go. So when you're choosing your spouse, it should be someone that you can actually say, you know what, we can actually go a little bit further. We can actually push the envelope, because in the bedroom, that's where you should be doing that the most. But it starts with being comfortable with each other. It starts with communicating where did this come from, because I'm not going to sit here and duplicate something that Sally Mae did when you first lost your virginity. Like, you need to let her go. Like, I'm not about to do that. So we need to do that as well. And just because of sake of time, I do want to say this real quick, because I got to go in a moment, is for the church, we do have to do better with having these conversations. The whole reason why I left the church 6 years ago, I'm back now and I'm so grateful. But 6 years ago, my husband and I were talking to our youth ministry, and the topic of discussion was addictions. And we wasn't just focused on sex. Like, we weren't even going to touch sex because we knew we're in the church. So we was talking about gambling, video games, talking on the phone. Like, we was doing like generic things. But the kids, 12 to 16 years old, kept going back to sex. And eventually, I come in there to try to support my husband. And we just said, you know what? This keep happening, right? So the question we asked, how many of y'all have been exposed to pornography? Because they kept going back to it. Every last hand was raised. Do you know, after that conversation, I got reprimanded because they said, well, nobody should ever tell their testimony like that. Nobody should ever talk about what they happened and things like that. And that moment was my moment where I walked away, which is why I became somebody who understands sex in the context, because I do want to bring it into the church. It's no reason why we're not talking about it. Once a kid have a cycle, we need to have that conversation. Last piece of this, like I said, I was exposed at 3. There are some kids that's been exposed to certain things, but because we're not having these conversations, they're out here hunching and don't know what they're doing because somebody showed them what to do. So we have to be even more mindful. Like, this should not be taboo. Sex is natural. It's the once you eat and once you have shelter, you want to lay down. That's literally how our brain functions and works. But because we don't want to have those conversations, we're out here and we're thinking sex is just this fun thing that you put on a film and you smack booties and you do all these whatever it is you feel like you're doing. But it really is something intentional, and it is something spiritual. And we have to have those conversations before our children are even ready for the birds and the bees, because if we don't do it, somebody else or something else is going to expose them to it. And then now that person's an adult with a morphed sense of what sex is, and then they end up hurting and harming their spouses because people then educate them at first about what it actually is and what it entails.
And I know you got to go, and we have 40 minutes, and I get to go back to sleep today, so I'm excited about that. And I know you actually working for the man every night and day, Pastor Shy. So I'm gonna get a wrap-up question, but I want both of you all to inform people where they can find you all on social media. Pastor Shy, you in New Jersey, people need a church home or pray, whatever somebody might need, man. Where can they find you? And we'll go ladies first on that.
Well, you guys can find me at www.malaratransforms.com. I am on Instagram, Malara Transforms, here right on Facebook, Malara Green, on YouTube, Transforming with Malara. And listen, at the end of the day, I always give my phone number because sometimes I am that person who's going to talk about taboo topics, because there's no reason why people aren't living their full life in a biblically sound way. There's an answer for everything in the word. So I always give my number, which is 757-609-0694. Again, that's 757-609-0694.
You would have 69 in the middle of your phone number. There would be a 69 in there. All right, go ahead.
But that's it, though. Like, honestly, I know this was an interesting conversation. I just hope that it shifts people's perspective, because at the end of the day, the only way to do something different is if you do something different.
Pastor Shy, let them know how they can find you.
Sir. So name of the church is World Outreach Christian Church. Our slogan is real talk for real God, real people, real love. The website is www.WOCC, World Outreach Christian Church, NJ for New Jersey.com. You can also reach my wife and I at dopemarriage.com. That is our marriage ministry. So dopemarriage.com or WOCCNJ.com. You can find me on both platforms.
So quickly, I don't know how many minutes you got, Malara, so I'll let you answer first. We had this whole sex talk, right? My good friend LaTroy came in. LaTroy, like, he getting ready to get married, so I missed all the good stuff. He talked about yesterday hedonism. He talked about we got to talk about nudity and being at a nudist camp, and I just had to talk about keeping my head to the sky if I ever went to one. But let me ask y'all this real quick. What tip would y'all give to anybody to make their sex life better? And we've talked communication. We've done all of that. We've been like, talk. Like, I'm talking about an actual tip. You be like, hey, look, this is something that'll put that spice back into your marriage. This is something that's going, or even your marriage. And I know we use the term marriage because I know where both of you are convictions and where y'all stand as people and what y'all morals are. Me, I got heathens that watch. So I got some heathens that are in relationships. They out there sexing. They like, hey, what do we do to make this sex better though? Give me something that's gonna make. I probably should have asked LaTroy and and Trouble in here, because they were talking about chairs and swings yesterday. But what do y'all? Give me a tip to make it better before we go out, and not just a tip.
All right. So I'm going to try to do this quickly. Number 1, for women specifically, explore your bodies. You want to know how to bring yourself to pleasure first to communicate how your spouse or significant other can bring you to pleasure. we don't do a lot of talking about self-exploration, knowing my body, knowing what feels good, know what doesn't feel good. We don't at least most women, we don't do a gentle introduction to have to explore. For men, it's a little different because again, you find a flick and then you find a spot and then it's great. For women, it takes a little bit more for us to know our bodies. So that's number one. Two, especially if you have been married for a while and you're getting older up in age, I always tell people, go to your doctor. For men specifically, if you are not standing at attention in the morning time, there is something going on with your body. It's supposed to naturally do that. If it's not doing that, you want to go to the doctor and make sure they run tests because the blood vessels could be clogged and something could be messing up there. So I always tell people, as you get older, you want to continue to get checked out medically wise, because if there's anything happening sexually, sometimes it's happening because there's a health issue or a health problem that's coming. And then three, explore. The bedroom should never get boring. Get you books of positions, watch you a flick, talk about it, do whatever it is that you need to do to continue to explore and make it fun. And if it did not work, you just say, hey, we ain't gonna do that again. We tried it, but we ain't gonna do that again. So have fun with the exploration. So again, women, learn your bodies, explore it. Two, don't be afraid to involve a medical professional to make sure that medically you are okay and capable of performing. And three, explore, have some fun, and enjoy just being able to create that bond between you and your spouse.
Pastor Shy?
Yes, sir. So 3 things I'll give you. Number 1 is purpose over pleasure. I often think about sex like driving a car. The purpose of driving a car is to get you from point A to point B. But when you abuse it and you're speeding, you can do more damage because you put purpose before pleasure. There's a purpose of sex that should be above the pleasure of sex. Doesn't mean that you don't throw away the pleasure. Number 2, love over lust, right? When you love your spouse, right, you are willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to please your spouse. Love is sacrifice, right? So sometimes we put lust above love. But when love is first, it's easy to lust the person that you love. The third thing I'll say is we over me, right? We over me. As a husband, it's not just about me being satisfied, but I don't want my woman in these streets thirsty either, right? So I want to make sure that at the end of the day, we're both full, because just like adultery, think about it like food. It's hard to feed somebody who's already full. So no matter what you're trying to throw at me, if I'm full, baby, I don't care how good your plate is, I'm not eating. So I want to make sure that my wife and I never leave the house thirsty nor hungry.
Huh? He's telling you to eat it. All right, so I'm that would have you heard what the pastor said. Pastor said, get in there and eat. All right, thank y'all so much, man. I think this was a great a move away from my normal foolishness, man. As I move into the next season of this show, I want to start having stuff on. So just letting you two know, man, you guys are really catalysts for how the show is going to grow, and I'm able to see that people really enjoy me having people who actually know what they're talking about on the show, man. So I definitely thank y'all both, man. If I had money, I'd send it to you, but I just dropped my daughter off at school, so $400 at Walmart later. But we'll talk about that. That's tomorrow's show. Tomorrow's show is all about this college drop-off experience. Thank you guys so very much, man. Thank you, guests. Even if I called you a heathen, I meant it in the best of biblical terms. And for my fellow virgins out there, man, I hope y'all learned something, man, that we can take out there into this world for when we finally get in there. Yeah. Thank y'all so much, man. I appreciate everybody tuning in, man. This will See You in the Morning, man, with Mylyra Green, Pastor Shy, and I was your host, Cletus Cassidy. I'll see y'all again tomorrow, man, about 7:15-ish. All right? Peace.